This was a massive spot to be in for such a young talent, to have a sold-out crowd completely behind her.
Eala from the Philippines could be the next big thing in pro tennis.
This is the goal, to do well on the WTA tour. I'm super proud of what I was able to accomplish, but the end goal is to win slams.
Alex Eala just made history, and the tennis world is still trying to process what happened in Dubai. Entering the tournament ranked number 47, she stunned a top 10 player, powered her way into the quarterfinals of a WTA 1000 event, and left with the highest ranking ever achieved by a Filipino tennis player. The numbers alone are enough to make her rivals nervous, and you can feel the pressure building as her rise becomes impossible to ignore. Now the big question is whether Alex Eala can break into the top 20 before the French Open, and just how far she can go at Indian Wells and Miami if this momentum continues,
New career high para kay Pinay tennis star Alex Eala ang kanyang ranking ngayon sa Women's Tennis Association.
The number tells the entire story. World number 32. That is where Alex Eala now stands in the WTA rankings after her remarkable run at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships. She entered the tournament ranked number 47 and walked away with a massive 15-spot jump after reaching the quarterfinals of one of the biggest events outside the Grand Slams. What makes it even more impressive is that she did not win the title, did not make the final, and ultimately lost in straight sets to the tournament's third seed. Yet the impact of that run was still powerful enough to push her to a new career high and into the history books as the highest-ranked Filipino tennis player of the Open era. That is not just a personal milestone, it is a national milestone. At only 20 years old, Eala has already reached a level no Filipino player has ever reached before, and she did it during a tournament where she exited in the quarterfinals. That alone shows how important WTA 1000 events are in the ranking system. These tournaments sit just below the Grand Slams in value and prestige, which means a deep run can completely transform a player's ranking and reputation in a single week. That quarterfinal run delivered 215 ranking points, and that number is far more important than most casual fans realize. At lower-tier tournaments, collecting 215 points can take months of steady results across multiple events. Alex Eala earned all of it in a single week in Dubai. That is exactly how the WTA ranking system is designed to work. When players prove themselves on the biggest stages, the rewards are massive. Those points pushed her from world number 47 to world number 32, and that jump changes the entire outlook of her 2026 season. Reaching number 32 is not just a career milestone. It is a game-changing position in professional tennis, because 32 is the cutoff for Grand Slam seeding. Being inside the top 32 guarantees a seeded spot at the Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, and the US. In practical terms, that means Eala would avoid facing another seeded player until at least the third round of a slam. Instead of potentially drawing a top 5 player in round 1, she gets a more manageable path early in the tournament, giving her time to settle in, build momentum, and find her rhythm before the elite-level matchups begin. That makes the French Open an especially important storyline. Eala suffered a first-round exit at Roland Garros in 2025, and with her new ranking, she now has a real opportunity to rewrite that chapter immediately. A seeded position could completely change the dynamic of her draw and give her the best chance yet to make a serious run on one of tennis's biggest stages. Heading into Paris as a seeded player in 2026 completely changes the structure of Alex Eala's tournament experience. Instead of risking a nightmare draw against a top 10 player in the opening rounds, she would likely have a protected path into at least the third round. For someone who has already shown she can compete with the sport's elite, including building a 3-3 record against top 10 opponents, that advantage could be enormous. Eala no longer looks like a player simply hoping to survive early rounds. She looks like someone capable of making real second-week runs if the draw opens correctly. But before the clay season fully takes over, the focus shifts to the American swing, and this is where the momentum around her career could explode even further. Indian Wells begins on March 4, followed by the Miami Open on March 17. Both tournaments are mandatory WTA 1000 events, meaning every major star on the tour is expected to compete, and the ranking points available are massive. Winning either tournament earns 1,000 points.
Reaching the final brings 650.
Even a quarterfinal or round of 16 finish can dramatically impact the rankings because the scale of these events is so high. Eala's current ranking also puts her in position to enter these tournaments as a seeded player, and that comes with a major advantage in a 96-player draw. Seeds receive a first-round bye, meaning while much of the field is already battling through difficult opening matches, seeded players begin directly in the second round, fresh, rested, and with the benefit of scouting opponents who have already spent hours on court. Over the course of a long tournament, that advantage matters. Less physical wear, more recovery time, and fewer early round dangers can make the difference between a short run and a breakthrough performance. And when you combine that structural edge with Eala's growing confidence against elite competition, the ranking math toward the top 20 suddenly starts looking very realistic. The race toward the top 20 is where the rest of the tour starts getting genuinely uncomfortable. Right now, the gap between world number 32 and world number 20 is roughly 800 to 1,000 ranking points. On paper, that sounds massive, but during the American swing, those points can disappear faster than people expect. If Alex Eala reaches the round of 16 at both Indian Wells and Miami, she could add around 240 more points to her total. That alone would not be enough to crack the top 20, but it would move her significantly closer before the clay season even begins. And that is where things become dangerous for the rest of the field. If Eala produces another deep
begins. The reason those projections feel believable is because Eala has already done something very few players in the world can say they have done. At the 2025 Miami Open, she entered the tournament as a wild card, meaning her ranking at the time was not even high enough to guarantee a main draw spot. Most wildcards are expected to lose early. Eala turned that opportunity into a statement run that changed how the tennis world viewed her completely. She defeated Jelena Ostapenko, then stunned world number 5 Madison Keys, and followed it by beating world number 1 Iga Swiatek in straight sets to reach the semifinals. That was not a lucky draw or a fluke week. That was proof that when Eala finds rhythm and confidence on a big stage, she can compete with absolutely anyone in the sport. Think about that for a second. A wild card entrant walked into a WTA 1000 tournament and defeated the world number 1 in straight sets. That is the kind of result that instantly changes how the entire sport views a player. Alex Eala's run in Miami did more for her global reputation than months of success at smaller tournaments ever could. It proved that her game translates to the highest level under real pressure against the best players in the world. The tools in her game are now impossible to ignore. The heavy left-handed topspin, the aggressive baseline shot making, the movement and court coverage sharpened through years at the Rafa Nadal Academy, all of it came together perfectly on one of tennis's biggest stages. And Miami clearly fits her style. The courts suit her pace and patterns.
reached the semifinals. If that version of her could make a run that deep without ranking protection, without experience, and without the expectations she carries now, then the ceiling for what she might do in Miami 2026 suddenly becomes much higher. The energy surrounding her matches is also becoming a legitimate competitive advantage. In California and Florida especially, the Filipino fan presence is massive. And when Eala steps onto the court, the atmosphere shifts. It is no longer polite applause from neutral fans. It becomes loud, emotional, flag-waving support that gives her matches the feeling of a home crowd thousands of miles away from home. The support Alex Eala receives in the United States is not just background noise. It is a genuine competitive weapon. Many of the WTA Tour's established European players are used to traditional tennis crowds, quieter, more restrained, more evenly balanced in support. But when Eala plays in places like Miami or California, the atmosphere can feel completely different. Packed sections of Filipino fans bring energy that sounds closer to a basketball arena than a typical tennis stadium. The cheering becomes loud, emotional, and relentless, especially during momentum swings and big points. And that kind of environment can absolutely affect opponents who are not accustomed to it. Eala herself has acknowledged that competing in America never truly feels like playing away from home. That matters more than people realize during long tournaments. When matches become physically exhausting and mentally tight, crowd energy can push a player through difficult moments. On Eala's side of the net, she gets an Emotional lift from thousands of fans fully invested in every point. Her opponents often do not receive anything close to that level of support. Over time, that psychological edge becomes real, and her results in the United States increasingly reflect it. The serve is likely the longer-term project, but the progress is visible already. Increasing pace and becoming more aggressive on serve naturally comes with short-term growing pains, including more double faults and occasional inconsistency. That is normal during technical adjustments. But if Eala can continue adding power while tightening placement and reliability under pressure, her entire game becomes even more dangerous because opponents will have fewer opportunities to attack her service games early in rallies. But that is often how major improvements happen in tennis. Before a serve becomes a weapon, it usually passes through a difficult adjustment phase where the numbers temporarily look worse. More double faults, more missed first serves, more inconsistency under pressure. Then, once the timing settles and confidence catches up with the technical changes, the serve transforms from a weakness into something neutral and eventually into a genuine advantage. Alex Eala and her coach, Joan Bosch, clearly understand that process. The work is already underway, and the trajectory is visible. What Dubai proved more than anything else, though, is that Eala's mental game already operates at an elite level. The victory over Jasmine Paolini revealed that in dramatic fashion. 6 missed match points, tiebreak chaos, momentum swinging back and forth under enormous pressure. For many young players, that is exactly the type of situation where nerves take over and mechanics begin to break down. Instead, Eala stepped forward and ripped a fearless forehand winner up the line to finally close the match on her 5th attempt. That moment said everything about her mentality. Every stage,
Her journey now feels connected to this moment, picking up a racket at 4 years old under the guidance of her late grandfather. Her family making the difficult decision to send her to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca as a teenager. Navigating the challenging leap from dominant junior player to full-time professional competitor. Those choices, sacrifices, and years of development are now producing results that are reshaping what Filipino tennis believes is possible at the elite level. None of this was guaranteed to end with a world number 32 ranking. Every player ranked ahead of Alex Eala has their own story of sacrifice, pressure, investment, and years of work that carried them to the top of professional tennis. But Eala's journey has now produced something no Filipino player had ever achieved before. That is why the reaction around the tour feels so intense after Dubai. The rankings changed, and suddenly everyone is forced to look at the trajectory differently. 3 weeks ago, she was ranked number 47 in the world. Now she is number 32. The same player who reached the Miami semifinals as a wild card ranked outside the top 100 is returning to the American swing as a seeded player with a career-high ranking, major confidence, and experience against the best athletes in the sport. She already owns 3 wins over top 10 opponents, and even in her losses against elite players, she has never looked overwhelmed or completely outclassed. That matters. It tells the rest of the tour that her rise is not built on one lucky week or one favorable draw. It is built on a game that consistently translates against world-class competition. Now,